Hi everyone, Chad Burton, CEO of Cura Legal, here to talk about how office space plays into virtual law practices. It may sound counterintuitive a bit to think about office space with virtual law firms, but it really does play a role because, again, going back to the creativity functionality and how to structure a firm in the way you want. So let's talk about how offices play in. We meet with clients. They have sensitive subjects to talk about, and you need to maintain confidentiality. So how does that all play out in a virtual law firm world? Well, if you've adopted a model where you are just interacting with clients online and maybe using video conferencing, things like that, well, so office space doesn't matter so much. Well, what if you want to meet with somebody? What if you need to have that client meeting outside of their business place or their home? How do you handle that? And those are the things we want to explore during this time because there are a lot of options out there. Office space still plays a role in the virtual law firm model. Remember the scale we talked about in the first video, which is on the one end, you've got the lawyer who operates just online and delivers legal services that way, and then you have the multi-lawyer, multi-state model. Well, that's full service representation. So everything from the person only doing online delivery, how do you handle those meetings? How do you handle serving clients when sometimes you have to be face to face? We know nowadays that clients are fine communicating via email and phone. I've got some clients from different parts of the country that I've never met in person. It's all been on the phone or it's on email. That's just how we've interacted because they've retained us for a local matter. That's common. That's been around forever. But how do you deal with the fact that under a virtual law firm model, you might give up office space? Well, let's take a look at some options that you can think about when you're setting up these models. First of all, you don't have to completely abandon office space, especially if you have multiple team members. One option would be to kind of have a home base. You might have a small office or a conference room that is dedicated to your firm that your team can use whenever. That's a decent option. Now you have a place to meet with people in person because they're expecting that kind of full service representation. Again, it goes back to who are you representing? If you're going to be representing a mostly consumer-based practice where people need to be able to walk in and hand information, well, you have to be able to kind of have that as an option. If you are representing a client base that doesn't care and isn't going to show up unannounced, well, you have more flexibility. Well, what if people are showing up? Well, we've got all kinds of options like the Regises of the world, the Da Vinci's of the world. These are businesses that are mobile office spaces. They have thousands of locations around the world where you can set up arrangements with them based on your need. For example, let's use Regis, because we actually use Regis and I've used it in different contexts in the past. You can lease offices full-time there. So if you have a bunch of lawyers in a virtual law firm model, you can lease an office and either just turn it into like a day office or turn it into a shared conference room space where you throw a conference room table in and you can have meetings in there so they always have access to it. Or you can rent by the hour. Sounds a bit seedy, but you pay by the hour. Again, it scales. Kind of like what we talked about in the outsourcing of virtual assistants and virtual paralegals. The busier you are, the more you expect to pay because you're driving higher revenue. If you're renting offices by the hour or renting conference rooms by the hour, it's based on need. So you're driving more revenue and you're meeting with clients more, which means that's going to pay for it. If you have a slow month and you don't have to have those meetings, guess what? You don't pay out that money. Another concept which draws a lot of criticism from some people is the idea of working in a coffee shop or working in some kind of public place. Well, let's think that through. Is it always a bad idea? No. Do you have to take sensitive client calls while you're sitting in the middle of a Starbucks working? No. Do you have to use public Wi-Fi? No. Well, you shouldn't. And you can tether your iPad or your laptop to your phone securely, so you're not worried about public issues there. Should you have meetings with clients that in these kind of public scenarios? No. Have I seen people do it? Yes. I witnessed one morning while I was sitting there doing some work, waiting for a friend to meet for coffee. I saw a lawyer who was very fancily dressed, young lawyer in a suit and tie, sitting next to me about 5 feet away, advising a person to leave her employment, and yes, it would violate her non-compete and her agreement not to solicit clients, but they'll deal with that at the time. And I watched and heard, unfortunately, this whole thing go down. That's a bad way of handling a virtual model. You don't have to do that. Go to a private space. Go to a Regis kind of deal. That's a great, horrible example of how not to do this, and partially why that gets a bad rap. So be smart. Think about it. Another thing, if you're concerned about cost, is ask a lawyer friend or mentor if you could use their conference room. They'll either give it to you for free or for a cheap rate. That's in a law office. It doesn't have to be your law office. Just think about that. And you can work from home, work remote, and then when you need to have those meetings, go into the traditional office space or the conference room space, and your clients may feel good about that, and you have a place that you can kind of call home. If you have one of these arrangements where a mentor or a friend lets you use a conference room, maybe they'll let your mail go to the firm. Mail and handling of hard copy mail is a bizarrely weird issue in the virtual law firm world. You have to think through it because you don't have a traditional office space where that mail is going to land. So perhaps you use a post office box, but the post office isn't going to monitor and say, hey, the Court of Appeals issued an opinion and it's sitting here waiting for you. You have to check that every day or have somebody check that every day. If you're on vacation or traveling for work, mail can sit there and go unchecked. Other options, which I like, this is why I like the Regis model, is that they sort it for you. They can, you can set up rules with them to say, hey, if a check or a court document or a law firm looking document comes in, automatically email me or automatically scan it and send it to me. You can set things up like that, or they can forward it to you. If you're out of town for a couple weeks, you can have your mail forwarded. So I like that option, and it's still cost effective, but you need to think through those things to be able to effectively handle your mail, because oftentimes, obviously, we get time-sensitive information as lawyers. Also, if you're concerned about your particular practice area and whether your clients would require an office space or feel weird about you not having it, talk to them. Communication is not a bad thing. If they feel off about it and you see a trend in that and you think you're losing business over it, adjust your model and try something different. You might also find, like I have found over the years, they don't care. What do they care about? They care about good work. They care about cost-effective rates. How you get it there, it doesn't matter so much to the client. They just want good results. So then I guess a last thought that is kind of a theme as we wrap these up. Look at your ethics rules, because especially if you're thinking about multi-jurisdictional practice, each state may have a little bit of a twist on it. So for example, when we went into North Carolina, on our website, we had to indicate next to the Regis address, it was by appointment only. Point being, we didn't have lawyers there during normal business hours. Some states have what's called the bona fide office rule, where you have to have a significant real on-site presence to be able to serve those lawyers. So that doesn't mean you can't be in that state, but if you have lawyers in those states, you need to just make sure that you're complying with those rules.